I think that he misses them so much that he would rather have them with him, no matter what it might take. And if ever there's a moment where he realizes that in himself, it's probably something that makes him hate himself a little bit for having that desire in the first place.
Welcome to the Character Sheet, comic books home for all things tabletop and fantasy news. I'm your host, Producer Pete, and I am joined today by a very familiar face. You may know him from Critical Role. You may know him from the Legend of Vox Machina. You might know him from his great run on Blackwater D&D's Godkiller Balance campaign. It is the one and only Luis Carazo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, we're here to talk a little bit mainly Critical Role because, as most of you have seen by now, a certain Paladin from EXU Calamity showed back up in one of the recent episodes of Vox Machina. So let's jump right into that and just say, how did you find out that Zerxus was going to come back for season 3 of Vox Machina, of all things?
Wow. I found out because I just received a text message from Travis sometime after we did Calamity. And just very cryptically, Travis was asking me certain questions about Zerxus, and then he was kind of just letting things hang, and I was left wondering, why, what's going on here? What's this about? So it wasn't until shortly after those initial text messages that I learned what they were planning on doing and how Zerxus was able to basically kind of step into something that occurred in campaign 1 and exist in the Legend of Vox Machina through that.
That's awesome. And let's step even further back and let's go back all the way to EXU Calamity for a little background on Zerxus for the people that might not be familiar somehow. Let's go back to that decision that landed Zerxus in the predicament we see him in Vox Machina.
Oh.
How shocked were you when that happened at the table? When in the middle of, at the very ending of EXU Calamity, like, did Brennan literally just like completely surprise you? Did you have any hint that was coming?
I had no hint. There were no hints given. I remember having a conversation with Brennan where we kind of checked in about that kind of player knowledge, and I said I want to know absolutely nothing. I want to play to find out. I had always assumed that we would encounter a betrayer god in Calamity, but I always imagined it would be some giant figure. I didn't even know which one, any one of them, heading from the distance towards Avalier, and that I, as Zerxus, the first knight, would have to go out onto the outskirts and meet them and confront them. I didn't know that it would, I had no idea it was going to go down the way that it did. And especially that decision at the end was a surprise. And I had to kind of think in the moment, what would Zerxus do here, given everything that he believes and considering everything that's unfolded, how it's unfolded. I don't know if we want to share what that decision was, but it's basically the reason why you see him in Vox Machina the way that he is, because he didn't start off that way back in the Age of Arcanum during the Calamity miniseries. He was a run-of-the-mill human paladin, redemption paladin. And now he's how we see him.
Yep. Yeah, we'll leave some of that back. I mean, I'm sure people at this point, if you haven't seen Calamity, like, dear God, pause this video, go watch all of Calamity. It might be the best 4-episode stretch of Critical Role in years. It's phenomenal. But speaking of that, like, and we've talked to Brennan multiple times on the channel, and we know that moment is like one of his favorite things he's done in an actual play. And one of the things I didn't mention at the very top was, of course, you were also on Candela Obscura, which once again showed that amazing chemistry you had with Brennan. Is there like any plans for more actual play stuff in the future with Brennan? Because you two have a really great on-camera chemistry.
Oh, man, thank you. We keep talking about it. We keep mentioning it whenever we see each other, how much we want to play together again. So I would say don't be surprised if you see us together on something again at some point, and then again, and then again.
Yeah, that tends to be the way it goes, which makes
Yeah,
sense. It's an amazing DM, an amazing player.
Oh,
It's
man.
always great to see someone that like matches up with him so well.
Can I add something about Brennan,
course.
if I may? Can I?
100%.
Because I really, really, Zerxus was an incredible labor of love for me, and I have to give credit where credit is due. You know, I don't think Zerxus would have been who we understand him to be without the participation and the generosity of not just Brennan, but the other people at the Calamity table. There are so many moments and things that other people did that affected his trajectory, and some of those were things that happened in the moment at the table, and I felt it happen in that moment. His course kind of get thrown off center a little bit and into something that I could have never have anticipated. So I'm just eternally grateful for the other players and for Brendan. They all their fingerprints are all over Zerxus and his trajectory, and I couldn't be more happy for that collaboration.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and that's the entire kit. And we'll touch on the rest of the Ring of Brass here shortly because they are a big part of the stories of Zerxus. But how shocked were you? Or were you even surprised when you found out that 1,000 years later, Zerxus is still down in Dis, still looking for that redemption, even though there was a hint that it might have, come by now at the very end of Calamity?
People often ask me where I thought Zerxus would be today, or in present day Exandria, and I have imagined so many different possibilities. And this was one of them. Maybe not exactly like how, where he was and what he's doing. The card game scenario was a cool addition and a really wonderful kind of treat. But I mean, one of the many possibilities that I considered was how he's absolutely still in this sort of purgatory of sorts and still there. I'm wondering if he's fully embraced his kind of infernal link, or if he's still resisting it. I can see all these different possibilities. But yeah, him down there completely succumbed, or apparently succumbed, to this infernal position that he's been pulled into is a very valid possibility, as heartbreaking as that is.
It is, and it adds a lot of interesting depths and future options for the character. But let's talk a little bit about the Ring of Brass. So they've also been dead for 1,000 years. I guess Pinch maybe for like 950 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But they weren't really the god worshipping type, and they were indirectly or directly, depending on how much hubris you attribute to them, responsible for the collapse of the city of Aor and the loss of a lot of lives. Is there any chance you think that Zerxus has maybe tried to see if those spirits are hanging out in hell somewhere? Maybe go have a little chat about some hard feelings that haven't been resolved?
Oh, man. I don't know if Zerxus would have sought them out necessarily, but that's I think a really compelling thing that I would love to explore. Just kind of hearing that one of them is down there with him and what that encounter would be like wow, that sounds awful. I think, just kind of the first person that comes to mind, if Nidus is down there, I imagine Zerxus, that would be the last thing he would want to confront, is his old best friend from above, learning that he's down there in the hells with him. Oh my God. I think that would be a really heart-wrenching confrontation, because I wonder how much of that Zerxus would think would make himself responsible for that. I mean, they all made their own choices and everything, but I don't know if I would be able to, as Zerxus, look Nidus in the eyes down in the hells if we ran into each other.
And hey, maybe I won't get into spoilers because this is before the last episodes have come out for the season, but like hopefully there'll be a chance down the line for more Zerxus and Vox Machina Season 3 or beyond. But speaking of more Zerxus, would you bring Zerxus back outside of Vox Machina? Like if there was another... I know it appears that Critical Role is set like on a collision course with a pretty big calamity / world-changing, possibly like time-jumping event for their campaign, but
Right.
there's always a chance to go back and look at things. Would you be open to doing more, another like EXU offshoot, or maybe even come back in the way you've come back in Vox Machina 3 as a sort of, this character trapped in the hells who's maybe going to become involved with the story somehow? Would that be something you're interested in doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there's so much more potential to explore where Zerxus is and uncovering where he's been and where he might end up. So yeah, absolutely. I'm so down to continue to explore all of those avenues at the table, on the screen, or in somebody's garage.
Oh, shoot. I just realized. I was just thinking of it. There's even a chance, and I know it's still in production. They haven't gotten to this part yet, but in sort of mid to late campaign of the Mighty Nine, Fjord does dabble in demon summoning. That'd be pretty awesome if he inadvertently summons a Zerxus at some point, and they kind of toss that into the script and Mighty Nine animated.
I would. That sounds pretty freaking cool.
All right, and let's see here. This is great. Let's talk about. Speaking of Campaign 3, there's this big back and forth on how to handle the releasing and possible containment of Predathos and what that means for the gods. Now, some gods are for just chasing the gods out of Exandria. Asmodeus, the Lord of the Hells, has a different plan where he's on board with that, but wants to remain as the only god left himself and just be like the sole god of Exandria. Where do you think Zerxus lies in terms of what he hopes happens? Does he want to see Exandria free of the gods, or is he worried that if that happens and there is no Asmodeus and there are no gods, he loses his chance on redemption or seeing his family ever again?
Yeah, I think somewhere in there is the core of what drives him is he is a redemption paladin to his core. Whether that now is the regret of failed redemption, whether that is the internalization of feeling worthy or unworthy of redemption, and tied in that is his family. I think still what is the predominant drive for him is his family, and whether there's a road back to them, whether there's a road back to himself, is what will determine where all those other chips fall. And that's all that's all that, for me, that's all that makes sense right now to speak to.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of that family, we saw that emotional gut punch of a scene, that card game between Pike and Zerxus, where Zerxus doesn't even seem to realize that his answer about wanting his family to be suffering alongside him in hell was the truth. And I guess there's two big ways to interpret that. And one is Zerxus misses his family so much, he wants them beside him no matter what. Or the other way is maybe he's been under the influence of Asmodeus for so long that he's gotten these years of, because we see it right beforehand, this hurt and resentment that his family sort of forgot and moved on without him, and then maybe he thinks it's time for them to share in that pain. So do you think Zerxus is just so desperate to see his family again, or maybe there's something a little sinister behind that?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know that Zerxus at this point has the kind of self-awareness to be able to understand where it all lies. And there's probably a lot of really complicated overlap. And I'm sure it's part of what haunts him is that he just misses them so much. And it's one thing to have lived an entire life with the people that you love and then have to say goodbye to them as they eventually meet whatever their end is going to be. It's one thing to miss somebody because you miss the time that you've had with them. It's another thing to miss somebody because you miss the time that you wish you could have had with them. You're missing who they were to you in life, but who they could have been for so many more decades if you could have had the chance to spend that time together with them. So I think he's very often lost in imagining and wondering what that other life would have been like if they had it to live together. And that, after centuries, has got to take a toll on somebody. There's probably a part of him that doesn't, I don't think he would wish pain and torment on them. I think that he misses them so much that he would rather have them with him no matter what it might take. And if ever there's a moment where he realizes that in himself, it's probably something that makes him hate himself a little bit for having that desire in the first place.
Oh, yeah, that feels like he's a very, very deeply complicated character, but you love to see how the time has sort of changed him and that connection to Asmodeus has changed him. And that's one of the great mysteries of Vox Machina season 3 is sort of, we're left seeing his message to basically have most of Vox Machina killed if they can, but there's still that hint that just the underlying nature of Zerxus there is like, maybe is this part of something else? Like, is he actively working against Asmodeus in some way? And the ambiguity is phenomenal, and hopefully we'll get to see more of it as Vox Machina 3 and beyond continues, or if he gets summoned by Fjord and the Mighty Nine, or if he pops back in for another EXU Calamity series. But now we're going to do something. We like to end all of our interviews with a little lightning round.
Ooh.
And in this lightning round for Brennan, we did a game of magical swords or mid-sized sedans, where you had to choose between if something was a magical sword or a mid-sized sedan. For Liam, we did Byron poems or emo bands. And I think for you, the only thing that makes sense, as you are a self-proclaimed paladin, is a game of Paladin or power tools.
Oh, man.
I will give you a name, and you must tell me if that is the name of a power tool or a paladin. And we'll start off with a big one, Roland.
Paladin.
Yes, from the Song of Roland, seen in many things, Dark Tower, a bunch of things. Festool.
There's got to be a tool.
It is. It's power tool. Now we start getting into the weird ones.
Okay.
Fane.
That can't be a tool. That's got to be a paladin.
It's a type of power tool.
Oh my gosh.
It's a power tool brand. Texture.
Paladin.
Yes, a paladin from Waterdeep.
Okay, great.
Abu Garcia.
I want that to be a paladin.
It's a brand of power tools that specialize in motorized fishing reels.
Oh, man. That should be a paladin, too. That's a cool paladin.
It's a great name for one. It's got very big Magic the Gathering, like Arabian Night sets vibes.
Yeah, I love it. I might make a character named Abu Garcia.
It's a great name. Teflonto.
That's
as in Teflon with a T-O.
Oh, man. That can't be. That's got to be a tool, but it's probably a paladin. See how I'm cheating there? I'm guessing both at once. I'm going to go paladin.
It is. That's Paul F. Tompkins' character in Harmon Quest.
Wow.
Teflonto, the paladin.
That's amazing.
Herbrand.
Power tool.
It is a power tool.
Okay.
Frankfurt.
Power tool.
That's actually a paladin from Critical Role's Barroom Blitz special.
Oh, man.
3 left.
Okay.
Thorson.
Yeah. I'm going to go power tool.
It is a power tool.
Okay, good.
Velchek.
Paladin.
It's a power tool. It's like, I believe, a Ukrainian brand of power drills.
That's a cool name, too.
It's a cool name. And finally, Skullhorn.
Please be a paladin.
Norwegian power tools.
Dang. Power tools have cool. The names for power tool names also make cool PC names.
Yeah, the hardest part is finding a good category. Like, it's weird how much overlap there is between magical swords and mid-sized sedans because they had some insane car names.
Wow, amazing.
And it's always nice to find a good overlap. But
oh man,
but so, I think we went about 50%, which is honestly kind of at or above the curve for most guests. So I think you did really well there.
Why, thank you.
Luis Carazo, thank you so much. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch him in episode, I believe, 4 of Vox Machina Season 3. And make sure you just watch all of Vox Machina Season 3 because it's extremely good. You can also see him in Godkiller Balance, which is available as a podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. And I'm sure in dozens of upcoming actual plays and one-shots that we'll see here in the near future. As always, a pleasure. Luis Carazo, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it greatly. And as always, viewers, do the liking and the subscribing. And we'll have a video for you next time.
Yeah, can I plug something?
100%. Yeah, I normally let people do that. I totally forgot.
Be on the lookout on Amazon Prime. I'm going to be showing up on another TV show called Butterfly. It's a live action one. And also, if you want to get some more D&D action, check out Cast Party. It's a podcast. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast that I've joined, and I'm having just the best time playing with those folks. They're really, really awesome people. So come give us a listen. It's a podcast. You can catch it on anywhere you find your podcasts.
All right. I will put the link. So Cast Party links will be down in the description, so you can check that out there. And we will see everyone back here with a new video tomorrow. And once again, Luis, thank you so much.